You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. On Capitol Hill, Senator John Kennedy voiced his concerns over the high cost of the proposed border wall just hours before filing his own bill with a proposal on how to pay for it. Alexandria Limon has the fierce debate in the Senate over building the wall.
In a fiery hearing, senators questioned the Customs and Border Protection Commissioner.
Has CBP ever fired tear gas at young children on the border prior to November 25th?
Just to clarify, Senator, we did not fire tear gas at young children.
Senators focused on border security and whether migrant caravans are dangerous.
Does the caravan include some dangerous criminals?
The CBP commissioner said caravans vary, but he believes a border wall would be helpful. The high cost of the wall, which includes buying privately owned land, is a concern for some Republican senators.
Why does this wall slash fence slash barrier cost $25 million a mile?
The cost of the wall varies between $5 and $25 million per mile, depending on the terrain and technology used, according to the commissioner's testimony. Rather than building an expensive wall, Democratic senators want to know why CBP and the Trump administration don't focus more on stopping fentanyl from coming into the country. Senator Richard Durbin says the deadly drug is coming to the U.S. from China, in the mail, on cargo ships, and across legal border crossings.
For the worst drug epidemic in our history, where is the passion for this?
In the recently signed opioid bill, there is a provision to try to detect and stop the fentanyl from overseas. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Congressman Steve Scalise also commented on the proposed wall, saying you are either for open borders or you are for a plan to keep America safe.
You see with this caravan that's coming across right now, Homeland Security has already confirmed more than 600 convicted criminals as part of this caravan that are trying to come into our nation. And the president's requested $5 billion that he needs to keep our country safe for border security, not just for a wall, but all of the other tools that our Border Patrol agents need to keep themselves safe and our country safe. And that's so important at this critical time.
If an agreement is not reached, the government will go into a partial shutdown on December 21st. And Senator Bill Cassidy has thrown his support behind that new bill to fully fund building a wall on the southern border.
It isn't just about illegal immigration, although that's important. And it isn't just about stopping dangerous gang members from coming to our country. That's important. It's also about stopping the flow of drugs coming across our border, killing Americans and communities across the country. That's particularly important. It's time we uphold our responsibility to secure the border. It's a national security priority. It's a health priority. It should be an American priority.
By the way, that bill is being co-sponsored by Senator John Kennedy. We spoke with Kennedy on that bill. We'll hear from him later on in the show. Well, the Farm Bill is heading to the president's desk. Both the House and Senate passed the massive $867 billion agriculture bill this week after months of negotiations. But as Anna Wernicke reports, not everyone is happy with the final product.
Chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, Kansas Senator Pat Roberts, says Christmas came early for America's farmers.
We got your back. You can go to your lender and say, I'm good for 5 years.
Roberts says getting everyone on board wasn't easy. It took months for House and Senate negotiators to reach a compromise.
It's not the best possible bill. It's the best bill possible.
The House passed the final bill on Wednesday after the Senate passed it on Tuesday. The bill includes everything from crop insurance to money for rural broadband.
It's a big bill, and it gets into nutrition, conservation, forestry.
But Texas Republican Congressman Jody Arrington says notably absent from the $867 billion bill are tougher work requirements for food stamp recipients.
We wanted to tighten them up through law and make them permanent, but we're going to have to defer and delegate to the administration to do that through regulation.
House Republicans and President Trump wanted to add the restrictions, but Democrats argued it would leave millions of Americans hungry. The restrictions would not pass the Senate, where they needed Democratic support.
a lost opportunity to have a chance to reform the food stamp program.
Darren Bax with the conservative Heritage Foundation says Republicans should be embarrassed by the final farm bill.
Why would you want to pass a bill that's a bad bill that goes against your principles?
Roberts says the answer is farmers need the help now.
Farmers need to look forward to the future to make investments if they possibly can.
President Donald Trump says he's ready to sign the bill as soon as it comes to his desk. In Washington, I'm Anna Warnicki.
Congress faces another deadline for the National Flood Insurance Program again this week. Lawmakers have until Friday before the program is set to expire. The deadline comes at the end of another short-term extension of that program. Senator Kennedy has been pushing for a 6-month extension, which he says would give him enough time to come up with a plan to reform the debt-ridden program. A deadlock within the state's income forecasting panel has Louisiana sheriffs and corrections officers waiting for more money. 3 members of the Revenue Estimating Conference argue that Louisiana will collect more than enough revenue next fiscal year to fund those raises. But House Speaker Taylor Barra says it's still too early to predict. His opposition meant no changes to the forecast. It could also mean Governor John Bel Edwards will have less money to work with when he presents an executive budget in February.
What's difficult is when you're trying to make those decisions with a limited amount of information, and that's where I begin to have concern about what we're being asked to do here with this forecast.
Barra says he supports the proposed pay raises. He adds that if forecasts are as bright as his fellow members say they'll be in March, lawmakers can still appropriate those funds for raises in a supplemental budget during the spring session. East Baton Rouge overwhelmingly said yes to a half-cent sales tax aimed at getting traffic moving in the parish. And the 30-year tax means a half-cent more at the cash register for certain items. Move EBR includes 70 projects ranging from road repair and widening to drainage and traffic synchronization. The measure was backed by East Baton Rouge Parish Mayor President Sharon Weston Broom, who said in a statement, quote, "Citizens have chosen to invest in the future of this parish. Move EBR will not only reduce traffic congestion and improve our infrastructure, it will enhance the quality of life for generations to come." The sales tax will begin April 1st, 2019, and will conclude March 31st, 2049. A Baton Rouge businessman says his private equity firm is willing to provide money up front for a new bridge over the Mississippi River. Jim Bernhard with Bernhard Capital is proposing what he calls the Capital Bridge and Capital Expressway. It includes a loop along Interstate 10 to I-12. To pay off the cost, Bernhard is calling on lawmakers to let voters consider a tax in East Baton Rouge and 4 surrounding parishes.
We're going to have traffic moving that moves through Baton Rouge. It's going to move on the outside. Local traffic is going to end up going down the existing structures now. We're going to look for the 5 parishes to contribute, and I believe that Baton Rouge has led the way, that these parishes are going to say, hey, we can do this as well.
Bernhard says this past weekend's approval of a sales tax in East Baton Rouge shows that capital area voters have an appetite for funding road work. The project would still face some hurdles like acquiring property for the bridge and roads. Members of Louisiana's highest court say the state owes a couple of taxpayers thousands of dollars because they weren't allowed to take full advantage of some tax breaks. With new legislation, Louisiana scaled back on tax breaks. That happened back in 2015. But last week, the state Supreme Court ruled the move violated the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. It's estimated that tens of millions have been collected under the rule over the past couple of years, which has reportedly resulted in some lawsuits by a couple of small business owners.
One taxpayer paid under protest $23,000. So that taxpayer gets their $23,000 back. There aren't any other payments under protest. So if you don't, the way that our tax system is structured, you have to pay under protest to challenge the statute. If you don't, you can't come back after the court renders a decision and say, we want to challenge it now. That's not how it works. You have to do it then.
Well, lawmakers passed a legislative fix during the session over the summer. We'll see if that helps. A Louisiana senator is one of several lawmakers defending President Donald Trump amid allegations of using campaign funding as hush money. The Southern District of New York implicated President Donald Trump in 2 federal election crimes surrounding hush money payment to 2 alleged former mistresses. Defenders of the president have been quick to point to one person, John Edwards. You might recall in 2011, the former senator who ran for vice president was indicted on 6 counts related to allegations he accepted illegal campaign contributions.
If you phrase it, am I concerned that the president might be involved in a crime? Of course. The question is then whether or not this so-called hush money is a crime. John Edwards obviously was prosecuted for the same thing, and Justice Department failed. Acquitted on one and mistrial on the others, but they decided not to proceed.
Of course, Michael Cohen, President Trump's lawyer, was sentenced this week to 3 years in prison for his role in the alleged hush money payments. Coming up next, President Trump's controversial border wall. We'll talk to U.S. Senator John Kennedy about legislation he co-authored to get it built. And he has a prediction about whether the stalemate with Democrats will shut down the government. That's next.
This is your local election headquarters.
I'm on the phone with U.S. Senator John Kennedy. He's in Washington, D.C. right now. Senator, thank you so much for taking time to come on.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Fred.
So let's get right to it. Tell me about the WALL Act. What does it do?
The WALL Act would provide between $20 and $30 billion to build a wall securing the southern border. I support legal immigration. I do not support illegal immigration. Walls work. They work already are working in San Diego and Yuma and El Paso. They're working in Israel. They're working in Malaysia. They're working in Saudi Arabia. They've worked across the world. This money would not be added to the budget. We're going to pay for the funding of the wall by closing loopholes that allow people who are in our country illegally to get federal benefits. I'm talking about folks who are in our country illegally who are getting food stamps, welfare, affordable housing, the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit. This bill will close those loopholes, and according to the Congressional Budget Office, which puts a fiscal note on bills, will save us, save the taxpayers $34 billion over 10 years. So it'll be a wash. And I'm hoping that my colleagues will support it.
We know the bill was introduced. Where does it stand in Congress right now?
We'll probably have to reintroduce it in the new Congress beginning in January, and it'll go to committee. You never hear anybody in Washington, D.C. saying that walls don't work in terms of border security, and there's a reason for that. They do. A lot of my colleagues who don't want to fund the wall talk about everything but the wall's effectiveness. And they work across the world, and they're working right now on their southern border. This would not build a wall along all 1,900 miles of our border. We already have a wall which needs repair for about 600 miles, and this would add some strategic locations to the list.
Well, Senator, you're going to reintroduce it to the new Congress. You'll have a Democratic-controlled House. Do you worry about it surviving the House because so many Democrats are against the building of this wall?
Well, sure, and that's a major concern. Many Democrats, not just in the House but in the Senate, don't believe that illegal immigration should be illegal. They think we should just open the borders and invite everyone in. Doesn't matter who they are, whether they're a terrorist or a drug dealer or a child sex trafficker or a member of a gang. I don't agree with that. Every country I know protects its border. It's a matter of national security, if nothing else. And I support, let me say it again, legal immigration. I think it makes our country stronger. But I don't support illegal immigration. And a wall has been proven time and time again as an effective way to slow it down and in some cases stop it.
We've seen this argument sort of reach its apex. I'm wondering if you saw the press conference or the photo op with President Trump and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, the two new ranking Democrats.
Yes.
And their argument sort of played out in front of the cameras there. President Trump saying that he would be happy to close down the government to protect the border. He and Chuck Schumer traded some shots at each other. What did you think of that exchange?
Well, I appreciated the transparency, quite frankly, and I think the American people are plenty smart enough to draw their own conclusions. I hope I'm wrong in this prediction, but I think we probably will have a shutdown. Again, I don't support it. I think we ought to work it out, but I think we're going to have a shutdown for two reasons. Number one, President Trump, I don't believe, is bluffing. And number two, Nancy Pelosi is not going to work in a collaborative way because she wants to be the next Speaker of the House, and the new Democratic majority in the House is very left-leaning, very liberal. And I think they've told her, if you don't stiff the president here, we're not going to vote for you for Speaker. And if I've learned anything up here, Fred, it's that what most people up here want is to keep their jobs.
When would we see a shutdown?
Next couple of weeks. And again, I hope I'm wrong on that, but I just don't. This is between President Trump and Speaker Pelosi, and if Speaker Pelosi makes any concessions, the very liberal House of Representatives will not elect her Speaker, and she wants that job.
All right, Senator Kennedy, I hope you guys are able to avoid a government shutdown.
Me too, man.
Good luck
Me
in
too.
those endeavors. And I appreciate you coming on the show this week in Louisiana Politics. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fred. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Well, if you are craving some wine or beer but don't feel like driving, there aren't too many options for you in Louisiana. But a state-run task force is looking at the idea of allowing online alcohol deliveries. As Capitol correspondent Harrison Golden explains, those ideas are pouring in.
Filling a glass of beer, booze, or bubbly, all with the touch of an app.
If consumers weren't demanding this activity, we wouldn't be here discussing it.
Now a state beverage panel and industry leaders are debating whether Louisiana should allow customers across the state to get alcoholic drinks delivered straight to their homes.
You can get a daiquiri through a drive-through, but you can't get beer, wine, and spirits responsibly delivered to your door.
Justin Robinson co-founded Drizzly, build the Amazon of liquor. It connects users with local retailers in 70 cities nationwide, including New Orleans.
When the customer
He says opening his service and others like it to the rest of Louisiana could pour some revenue into local business.
You know, it may be even safer. We're not going to have drunk people out on the road to go get alcohol with some food or something. You know, they can just get it brought straight to them.
A State House panel drained efforts earlier this year to allow alcohol deliveries, and task force members say if any such idea were to pass next year, it would need some guidelines.
So just food for thought.
Members proposed blocking deliveries to so-called dry parishes and to any schools or public parks. Another recommended permitting deliveries only to residential addresses.
To ensuring that we don't allow sales to underage minors and ensuring that we're protecting the public in allowing that delivery. Any objection to that motion?
The task force must send its recommendations and findings to the legislature by March 1st, with legislation possible in the spring session, just before that season for summer wine. For your local election headquarters, I'm Harrison Golden.
Members of the State Food and Beverage E-Commerce Panel will meet again January 10th to discuss potential legislation for the 2019 session. We'll wrap up the week when we come back on your local election headquarters. Stay with us. This is your local election headquarters. Finally, the city parish of East Baton Rouge wants you to see how your tax dollars are being spent. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome helped launch Open Checkbook BR this week. This new website shows you how your tax dollars are being spent across the city parish. Open Checkbook BR is a companion website to the city parish's Open Data BR, which started 2 years ago. We have a link on our website, brproud.com, to check it out. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.